Okay, so we're going to do distributive property and simplifying. These are things that we learn to get you ready for solving, because the very first step of solving is simplify. So adding and subtracting like terms. We've talked a little bit about this, but let's just quickly review. The definition of like terms is they have the same variables. And you know, a variable is just a letter. They have the same variables. So you can add like terms to like terms. So looking at the example, we're going to group these by like term. So let's start by grouping the x's. So we're going to come up here. I have a 2x. I have a plus an x. And plus a 5x. Those are all my x's. I'm just crossing them off as I'm writing them. That means I can add those together. I'll do that in a second. Let's do the y's. I have a 3y plus a 5y. That's all the y's. Now let's do the numbers. I have a 7 plus a 4. And then that little 3x squared, it doesn't add to anything, it's just itself. So that one's already added. So we've grouped these by like terms. Like terms means the letters have to match perfectly. Remember, an x is a 1x. So 2 plus 1 is 3, plus 5 is 8x. Adding the y's, 3 plus 5 is 8y. Adding the numbers, 7 plus 4 is 11. That is adding like terms. X's to X's, letters to letters. All right, number 2, simplest form. Simplest form. For what we're doing, simplest form means there are no parentheses. No parentheses. The variable comes first, so the X or the Y comes first. And the number comes last. There are more rules for simplest form, but that's going to get us through the next few days. So simplest form, no parentheses, put the letter first, put the number last. So we're going to answer the question, are the following in simplest form? Well, in A, you have a couple of x's that you could add together. So this would be a no, it's not in simplest form. For B, 2x squared. There's nothing else to do. So yes, that one is in simplest form. On C, it's got parentheses. So no, that's not in simplest form because it has parentheses. And the last one's the hard one. It is, you can't add a 6 to an x, but it's out of order. It needs to be x plus 6. So no, that's not yet in its final form. So that is simplest form. So all your answers from here on out are going to have the letter first and the number last and be as simple as possible. All right, Roman numeral 3, other vocabulary, coefficient. The coefficient is the number multiplied by the variable. The number multiplied by the variable. And again, variable just means an x or y. So the number multiplied by the variable. I use coefficient sometimes. Math people, AKA also known as scalar. And the scalar is pretty much any number in front of a grouping symbol. Okay, so what is the coefficient? What is the number attached to the letter? So for 2x, the coefficient would be the 2. For 3x squared, the coefficient would be a 3. 8 doesn't really have a coefficient. I didn't intentionally make that tricky. But if you see an x, the invisible coefficient is the invisible 1, because all variables have at least a 1 for a coefficient. All right, that's the word coefficient. Word number 2, equivalent expressions. Equivalent expressions. Basically, they're two expressions that look different. They look different, but have the same value. They look different, but they have the same value. So equivalent coins, 4 quarters is equivalent to 10 dimes. Quarters and dimes are different, but 4 quarters is $1, 10 dimes is $1. So those are equivalent amounts. So in this example, you have a 9x on the left, and on the right, you have a 7x plus a 2x. Well, you can add a 7x to a 2x, and that gives you a 9x. So actually, it's 9x on both sides, which means the left and the right are equivalent expressions. They look different, but equal the same thing. Equivalent expressions. All right, last thing, and this is the main part, distributive property. Number 1, the purpose of the distributive property is to remove parentheses. To remove parentheses. In other words, it's part of simplifying. So anytime you're simplifying, you're removing parentheses, so you're going to occasionally use distribution property to get rid of parentheses. That's the purpose, to get rid of parentheses. Okay, process, what do? You multiply all numbers inside the parentheses by the scalar in front of the parentheses, and the word "the" needs an E. There you go, in front of the parentheses. All right, let's do distribution property. There's an A in front of parentheses. You're going to distribute it, so you're going to multiply both of those by the A. So you're going to go A times B, and then this is something that will make sense later when we do integers. Leave a space, and then A times C. Now the reason that we do that is because whatever the sign is that you get off of this pair, the A times C, that's what goes in the middle. So A times B is AB. A positive times a positive is a positive, so a plus goes there. A times C is AC. Okay, example 2. The 24 is not next to parentheses, but the 3 is. In order of operations, multiply always comes first. But even before that, grouping symbols come first. That's how you know you have to distribute the 3 first, and then second deal with the 24, because we multiply before we add. So here we go. I'm just going to recopy the 24, and then we have plus a 3 times x, leave a space, 3 times negative 7. All right, 24 is just 24. 3 times x is 3x. And what's a positive times a negative? A negative. That's why there's a minus that goes there. And then 3 times 7 is 21. So whatever the sign is on the last pair, that's what goes in there. All right, now we're going to add like terms. 3x is lonely, so put it first. 24 minus 21 is 3. So 3x plus 3 is your answer. All right, let's do number 3. You're going to distribute the 5. So you're going to have 5 times 2n, leave a space, 5 times 8. So 5 times 2 is 10n. And for the second pair, a positive times a positive is a positive, so it's going to have a plus. And then 5 times 8 is 40. Now, example 4 is on the homework, which is why I'm throwing it in so you've seen it before. Sometimes you don't need distribution, because if you look at number 4, it's got an A plus a 5A. We can add an A to an A. So 5 plus 1 is 6A. So if we simplify inside the grouping symbol, now we don't have anything to distribute. We just multiply. 6 times 6 is 36A. So if what's on the inside matches, yeah, definitely simplify. All right, last one I want to do. I forgot to put one of these examples on earlier, x plus 2 times a 4. If there's a number in parentheses after your binomial, that actually gets distributed also. It's reverse. It distributes backwards. Now, if it's plus 4, that's not it. It has to have parenthesis next to a parenthesis, which means multiply. So I'm going to have 4 times x, leave a space, 4 times 2. So you can distribute forward or backward. It's the same technique. We get 4x plus 8. This little showing the space step is going to save your bacon later. You just have to trust me on that. It's a really, really good way to do it to avoid dropping negatives. Are there any questions?